One thing it's funny, this is back in the 90s, my lecturer said to us was, look, by the time you finish this degree, your skills are going to be irrelevant.
Welcome to our podcast, Griffith Business Students Podcast. This is your host. My name is Stu.
And my name is Victor.
We have a guest that I've been eyeing on since my first course in, I think, Future of Work. Not too sure. But ever since then, I wanted to have him on our podcast, and we have him here. So we have Associate Professor Luke Houghton with us today. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Could you please introduce yourself to the audience who may not know you?
Yeah, I've been teaching in the area of management and digital, what we would call digital transformation now, going back 20 plus years. So I got here in 2004 as a lecturer in what they used to call information systems. Spent a lot of time there and teaching into the management programs here. I've probably spent a couple of decades thinking about problem solving and creative problem solving. Yep. That's a real passion of mine. And I'm lucky enough here to be able to do that on a regular basis. So, yeah, I've been doing that for quite some time now. Quite a while.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I noticed from you, even those lecture recordings, that you were really engaging, you're really personal, you're relatable. I think that's some of the things that we don't really see often.
Thank you.
And I think that's really admirable to me. So I guess in terms of like information and problem solving side, so is that what you studied all throughout your academic career?
It's a funny story because when I started in IT, and I didn't like computer science.
Yep.
I found it to be it's very technical, so it's something that you spend a lot of time doing programming and things like that, and that's too boring for me. A lot of my good friends do that. They're quite good at that. And then I moved from that into I changed from that to arts. Didn't like arts at all. No offense to any arts people, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So then I went back to business and I found business computing and I really loved it. And I haven't really left. I've sort of wandered around a little bit, but it's now that it's all sort of coming together in this new way in the last 5 years. It's paid off, but I'm glad that it's paid off for me.
It's a highly progressive topic, and because technology and there's now in the new development of new media, even podcasting right now is a form of new media to really engage with our audience and things like that. So I guess is that some of the things that you keep an eye out on, like these new mediums and things like that?
Yeah, I think where I've been lucky is that I've always been around technology as it's come out and as it's sort of begun to change things. So part of it, I think, is that a lot of this stuff now, like we're sitting in a room here, this wasn't possible so many years ago. It was very difficult to do. It was very hard. And you had to kind of lug all this stuff around. Now that you've got this sort of technology, and even looking at the cameras and lighting now, it's shrunk in the last 10 years. So it's that transformation part that I'm really interested in, and how people can use it to make a difference and change things. And that's where I think it's been something for me that I've really, really thought about. Even way back when I first started, I was looking at people were using very expensive computing equipment in large organizations and trying to figure out why it wasn't working. So it's that kind of thing, being at that edge of it rather than being at the computer science nuts and bolts end of it. Yeah.
I think digital transformation has been the hot topic for a lot of, even my journey here of 1 year of just being in, doing assignments. Digital transformation is a big topic. So why is that important?
I think it's important because in the time that I've been involved in the field, it started out as something that you kind of did because you needed some accounting done, or from a business point of view. You needed something that sort of got a job done, like did some spreadsheets or whatever. But in the last 10 years, what's happened is technology's moved from being just something we use to get a job done to being the central way that we do things.
Right,
And the best example I've seen is with my own children who are grown adults now. They use technology as an extension to communicate, and they have these things on, I guess, Messenger or whatever it is, and they have these full-on dramas and things that back in the day that would have been we yelling at each other face to face somewhere, and it's all happening in these apps, and that's, I think, the beginning of a big change. Like AI is another example of that. How the easy use of that technology means that you can just pick it up and it's changing things immediately. And it all sort of changed, I think, around the time the iPhone came out.
Yeah.
I think that sort of began a shift in design, and people then began to think about, this technology actually could do this for me or that for me. And we've just seen an explosion since then.
Do you think you associate that change from the first iPhone because people are all of a sudden more interested in developing user-friendly apps and making things more accessible to the general public?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where the big change was. So there's this idea that's been around in technology research for a while, like technology acceptance research, about ease of use. And so these guys in the 80s and 90s spent, I don't know, years worth of effort exploring what makes technology easier to use. And all of a sudden these apps came out where it was, you pick it up and you can you learn it quite quickly. And you can get to the actions that you want to take or the things that you want to change a lot faster. And as a result of that, it's become so easy to use that cycle has been reduced to almost nothing now. For example, I got some older people in our family, they're all on those portable devices. They're all doing things with their smart TVs that are quite easy to do. You don't need to be an engineer really anymore to be able to figure that out, and everything's just there, so it's amazing how that change has happened.
I mean, this is right now the application of that. Is we have progressed to communicating online so easily that's
what we're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's normal. It's a normal thing. I guess for students who are listening is I guess that is a reality of a transition. I think noticing that transition and noticing the transformation side is helps students to understand like what kind of direction that we can actually start to innovate. Because I know that there are jobs that we are losing, like in terms of like AI, and there's jobs that you're losing value in that. But also, there's a lot of jobs that can be innovated, that can be created from creating new mediums, new technology, new ways to communicate. So and that keeps it quite creative, and that create a problem for creatively solving it.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening, and I think that's a really good way of putting it, because it's gotten to the point where you can think of an idea for a business or whatever it is, and you can scaffold something over a weekend now. You can sit there and you can think of something, and then you can test it, and you've got the tech stack there to do a roughing of it, like a working viable product, and you can test it. That the upside of that, I think, is it's great that we can do that. The downside is, you're right, it is replacing a lot of jobs, but a lot of data now is starting to suggest that those skills that were part of that original sort of Silicon Valley, creative thinking, entrepreneurship, and that are coming across now in technology, because you need someone to be able to harness it. To do, and it'll go more in that direction, I think. Where you'll have to think about what the problem is, what the solution might be, and then the pathway to developing the technology as fast as possible. And I think that you're seeing that already now with AI doing a lot of coding, and and replacing some of those fundamental things that I was trained in. This is like systems analysis. This is you make a small app for a small business. Now they've got zero. They don't need that anymore, and they haven't needed it for about a decade. So that shift and that change towards the skills focus, I mean, it's great for me because I happen to be in that area, but it's something I'm seeing emerge more and more. Like a colleague of mine, Jen Loy, and I put out an article last year on the skills for digital, like the skills for the new industry sort of thing, Industry 4.0, I think we called it. And the idea there is that you have this technology that you can just pick up and use. But then you got to start thinking creatively about what do I want to design with this? What do I want to create with this? What do I want to make with this? And I think that's what I've noticed in the last 5 years, that shift towards that.
Touching on that point about the new jobs and the jobs that are going away, I remember from Future of Work, one of the first subjects I did at uni, it was talking about the fourth industrial revolution, and that more jobs are going to be created than the jobs that are going to be lost. Can you walk us through? But and also throughout the course, it was mentioned that yes, there are going to be more jobs created, but then doesn't necessarily mean that the workforce has those skills to meet those job requirements.
I think that's a really good point. And there was a study, I don't know which consulting house it was. I think it was Deloitte, put out a year or so ago about this is going to be a real problem in a couple of years. And the reasons for that are that Well, when you had someone that was a network engineer, and they still are network engineers, or a systems admin person, those people used to get, back when I was in uni the second time, you know, they were making $100,000 a year back then. Now you can get someone that's a sysadmin quite cheap. The reason for that is there's a shift away from that kind of technical skill set, but it's like a balloon effect. You now need people that can do the other side of it and know how to work with technology to develop something and make something. That's happening more and more and more. So where I think some of the fear mongering around it is, oh, we're going to lose all these jobs. You're losing jobs that, if you look at history, they probably would have been lost anyway. But now what you're seeing is, oh, this technology is creating all this opportunity, and I think it'll get to the stage where it will create more jobs than it will replace. And the reason for that is I think we need those skills. We need to be able to have new talent come along. Like we've had a job that I saw a while ago, like a prompt engineer for AI. This is a thing now. And people that are doing that kind of work are very good at knowing how to communicate with AI. But then if you take it a step further, and technology starts to become more and more embedded, then you're going to have a need for different work, different people, different jobs. And one thing that it's funny, this is back in the 90s, my lecturer said to us was, look, by the time you finish this degree, your skills are going to be irrelevant. And I remember her saying that back in the, I was like, great, I've just paid X amount of dollars for this. But one of the things I think that's changed as a result of that is that now technology is at the forefront of everything we do. It's integrated with everything. And so new needs are coming up. And people that always make that mistake of saying AI is going to wipe out the planet or replace our jobs, forget that there's going to be new and novel problems that require new and novel skill sets. And it's going to be hard for technology to be able to replicate that if they don't know what they're looking at in the first place.
I agree. I mean, I'm coming from a marketing major, and some of the people that I've talked to has mixed opinions about marketing, because there's a mixed opinions of, marketing is going to disappear because AI is going to take care of a lot of like marketing plans, and then if you just execute those tasks, then you don't need a marketing person. And at the same time, there's another side going, okay, if you're talking about marketing, you can actually, AI will absorb marketing and say that, okay, these marketing people will be able to utilize AI to maximize output. And that's sort of the things that I actually share, that I think AI is going to actually enhance every department. And marketing specifically to me is AI can be helpful in terms of like productivity. Like it can be automated. It can automate a lot of things. And there's actually, I used to see all the ads all the time with new softwares, new AI coming up and say, though you can connect few AIs together and automate a business operation. And I'm like, that sounds too good to be true. But that is the way it's going. AI can interact with each other and say, hey, I can automate this process for you.
There's a lot of that. On the front side of that, it seems like marketing's a perfect example, right? Because marketing usually is the engine that drives the growth of a business. It's usually the most important thing there is the brand and brand awareness, and then getting people through into your business and having them work with you. There's no way, I think, and I could be wrong, I've seen some interesting chatbots and stuff where it's a person doing, like setting appointments. They've already got chatbots that can set appointments for you. Like they can cold call people and set appointments.
I actually got one of those the other day.
Oh, that's crazy. No way.
They're crazy, eh? Like the guy doing the demo was talking to it, and it sounds like a real person. And you think, wow. But at the same time, think of the overall strategy of bringing in customers. It may tell you, do this, do that, and it doesn't work. And you're the one that has to sit there and figure out, okay, why didn't that work? Why didn't that land? What's the feedback telling us? And it can do some of that. But in my experience with it so far, it's very much you have to drive the process and you have to know what you're doing. And that's the challenge, I think, that we're facing. You guys, probably not me, because I'm closer to the end than the start. But it would be something like you have to learn how to not master it, but I'm thinking of a project, a marketing project, or a new way to raise our brand awareness or to convert some people into our business. But it stopped working after the third try. And so AI is going to go, I did what you said, but you didn't tell me anything creative or interesting to do after that step. And I think that's the
That's a gap right
the
now.
world we're going into.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's as an interesting topic even for students is they use AI for I don't know academic purposes, but in terms of I guess utilizing that space, it's such a you gotta think about it yourself and how to harness that. And I think that's a real clear CTA for students who are listening is you gotta understand that AI is designed to help.
That's right.
It's not designed to lead you.
That's right.
And I guess that's something that we gotta all impact and reflect and choose from that. So yeah, I guess digital transformation AI is such a big topic, and I know that's your field. So is there any or tools or any trend that you see at the moment that you like to mention?
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing now is like one of my PhD students, Mattis Smith, is doing this study on how managers and leaders are using it. And when she started 3 years ago, nobody was using it. And in the interim, people are using it a lot. And some of those uses are mind-blowing. Like there are lawyers that are using it to sort of make sure that the statements are correct, that they're following the law. There's people that are using it in engineering. There's people that are using it in construction. So it has kind of spread through everything. But I think what I'm getting from that is people don't quite know how to leverage it properly yet. There's some researchers here that are doing some great work with it, giving it a lot of data, and it produces some good stuff. But you still require that intelligence behind that to sort of learn to work with it. And students listening, or anyone that watches this, I would urge you strongly to get on board with that and figure out the logic behind it.
Yeah. Because
it will help you to be able to deliver certain things, like the world of organizational politics, for example. I don't think AI can help you much there. But if you become someone that's a good problem solver, someone that can get a job done and create a framework, then AI is the best thing for you, because it can help turn a lot of your work into something succinct that you can demonstrate to other people that's got value, and then you then by association have value as well. And I think that's the big thing about it. I think people look at it and think, oh, it can answer these questions about what disease I have, or every time one of us gets a blood test, we put it into ChatGPT and do I have cancer, or what is this? It's good for that, but it's actually better to, on a long project, when you're working on something big, it's good at stages to sort of feed it and then split it into different groups. Perhaps put one on your computer and train it to sort of analyze data and to do things for you faster. And that's the real value in it. And that's a big shift for us, because prior to that, everything was input driven. It was, you get on your computer, you save things, and it's all stored internally. We have a really big opportunity, I wonder if anyone's going to take it, where you could build these sort of robust apps that support a decentralized organization that's very agile. And I think the first company that works that out and thinks like, I can optimize my marketing, but then have a couple of really intelligent marketing graduates sitting there figuring out how to optimize it. And I think that's where you'll see the real value. It's like a gold rush of sorts. But that hasn't happened yet. I haven't seen too much. I've seen a lot of that repetition, getting ChatGPT to tell me this, that, and the other. But on a big scale of being analyzing large pools of data and being able to break it up into meaningful tasks that help us get results, that's new. That's not really been around much before.
Interesting. This researching space, because obviously like you're in the research department and then producing articles and things like that. So because how to get to that knowledge of space, like how does that look like for you? Because I just want to go into a little bit more on like research, because I don't think a lot of people are familiar with that concept, with especially business majors, to understand like the research aspect is what helps when navigating through those trends. So how did you get into research, and what are you researching right now, and I guess what do you like about it?
I got into research in a really roundabout sort of way. I was doing my third year.
Yeah.
And we had a guy called Paul Leddington come in and give a couple of lectures in an area that was really interesting to me. It was like he was talking about different ways to think about information technology, and he had all these articles, and that's when I really started to think, oh, I like the philosophical side of it. I like to explore things and learn things. So he kind of got me in, because he said you should apply, and then I just sort of got into it and followed that path from there. Although I was doing some software stuff on the side at that stage. I think for me, I think anyone that's got a real passion to want to learn something, research is the best way to go about it. And we're lucky enough here that we get paid to do that. It's a part of our job. It's not our whole job. The second half of our job is really teaching. But that research part, you can find things, you can come up with really big questions to ask. And I think the dean here has a really good way of saying it. I'm probably going to misquote him here. It's like, you've got to ask bigger and more meaningful questions. What's your question? What do you want to learn? And if you've got that passion, I think research is the best way to go. Like, you're not going to get paid millions of dollars up front. That's anyone watching this thinking that. It's a hard slog initially, but it's quite rewarding to explore something quite deeply. And at the moment, I'm working on quite a few things. We've got hopefully we get it. We've got a project with Paula Bruff that I'm involved in, and Jen Loy on how do radiologists use AI in their practice. Because I usually don't, I'm not going to look at the technical side of it, like how the machine works, but is it helping them do that? And I saw some fascinating stuff at the Gold Coast City City Hospital last year on what they were doing. Got that. I've got a bunch of PhD projects in technology development. I've got a guy coming on soon who's going to look at ways to build a sustainable business model using AI. So lots of stuff like that. But I'm very much focused on the creative problem solving side of technology. And I've got a really interesting project coming up with a group and Jen Loy again out of New Zealand. And we're looking at how we can help mental health forensics and what kind of technology can we use to help them solve some of the problems that they have. And that's been interesting so far. And I think this is where where I've noticed things are trending away from. It's not necessarily, can we build a bigger, faster boat? It's now, what can we do that's more interesting, and how can we tackle some of these older problems which we've had for so long? Like mental health and things like social work and those kinds of big issues, and how can technology that's normally in the world of business help to develop that better world? And that's what I've become really interested in the last few years.
Have you been able to impact some businesses in this space? Like, has there any businesses kind of approached you and say, look, I don't know what to do?
Funnily enough, you would think we'd be the last people they would ask,
Right.
because we're very into our own little worlds,
Right,
with our theory. But it does happen a lot.
Yeah, right.
It happens heaps. Like I can't count the amount of times. Like I teach professionals,
Yeah.
and they'll come up to me after class and say, "I've got this issue with my manager. What do you think I should do about that?"
Yeah.
I've looked at all kinds of things in terms of architecture, and one of my colleagues he was a student, and we ended up working together after he finished his master's. I met him here. He runs his own business, and so every now and again I'll talk to him about what he's doing, and we have a conversation. Yeah. So it happens quite a bit.
Wow.
And the advice is never straightforward. It's never, I've just bought this computer, what should I do with it? It's usually stuff around, I've got this particular problem. I don't know how to deal with it. So things like, how do I promote this on LinkedIn? I don't know why I get asked these questions. If you've seen my LinkedIn, it's pretty dead. But people ask those kinds of questions because there's a big gap there at the moment with tech. I've had one, I think, last year. Maybe it was earlier last year. It was around, we've got this training program, and it was with a company, I can't think of the name of them now, it's terrible, but they were basically like a forward-thinking group for women in leadership, and they were asking us about what kind of courses do you think we should offer the people to help them. So we'd put up a bunch of suggestions for them, and they would go out and try it. I've worked with the Air Force before. That was a fascinating experience. That was incredible. It's some of the most intelligent people you'll ever meet. And they work very, very hard. And it's a very budget-constrained environment. So I saw a lot of really cool things in there. And I think we were able to create a good blueprint for them. I don't know whether they'll use it or not because, there's a lot of changes there. But yeah, I've been very lucky that way. I've worked a lot with business over the last 15 years or so.
I guess that problem solving with the resolution side is especially in creative context, it can be anything. So, I just wanted some examples of those kind of creative output. Like, do you, because a lot of students, or even for me, I want to know how problems can be solved. I want to know, especially involving tech and AI, because a lot of times it may sound like, oh, just this revolutionary technology is going to change your business. It's not necessarily like that. So how does that look like in that process, like actually getting into play?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That is the hardest part of it all, I think. I can't tell you the amount of times, and I teach a course on problem solving. I can't tell you the amount of times I said to people, when you're going into something new, don't create a judgment immediately. Don't rush into something and go, I've got the answer. Because what happens over time, as you're going deep into something and you're trying to really solve a problem, you're trying to move towards what I would call a framework, which is a set of steps or a process that you can hand to people and say, originally we were here, we didn't know what we were doing. I've created this valuable framework which you can now apply and use and replicate. But to get to that, you've got to do a lot of exploring. You've got to compare different ideas. You've got to see what works and what doesn't. And you've got to go through the hard yards of trying things and exploring. And I think in the world that we're in at the moment, people's patience is very thin and they don't want to do that. And part of it's our fault, right? Because we overloaded everyone with information. And we said, here's a bunch of things to think about. And AI comes along and synthesizes a lot of that. And that's, I think, that creative side of it is exploring and designing and trying things. Like one way I've heard it said was, you're going to build something like a prototype or an idea so you can destroy it. And you know, and try different new ways of being creative to explore and understand things. And that's often just a process of looking at the problem, asking questions, seeking empathy from people, trying to understand why they do the things they do, how they got into this situation in the first place. And then trying to think about ways that you can help them to understand how they have to learn their way out of it. And that's the challenge, I think, because everyone they want the quick answers, believe me. They love a quick answer.
I was working with a business just recently, and it's tough when there's a business that doesn't know what's wrong, doesn't know where they want to go, and doesn't know how to fix it. So that's a tough spot to be in. As someone who's working and who's actually trying to solve a problem, because there's a lot of people doesn't know there's work involved to solve a problem. There's actually you gotta invest time and energy to actually spend time to know what's going on, and actually moving forward with that requires research, requires resources, requires these opinions and advice that you can actually take on to make a better decision. So I think that's a really valuable thing that students can apply in their workforce if they go in there, because a lot of times businesses that just trying to move forward and trying to make it better, and that's the kind of perspective you can actually take to your workforce and actually change it for the better. And I think that's how you stand out, really.
Yeah, no, that's right. And there's a couple of ways that can play out. Like if you help that business and incrementally, like once a day, let's say you do some exploring and you find, okay, these are the root causes of this seems to be the issue, and you can remove just one of those and it improves the situation 10 or 15%. Well, for that business, it's like, oh, we're moving in this new direction. And so a lot of this is change. A lot of this is trying to get people to understand that when something that brought you to this point in time and it stopped working, every action that you've taken prior to this led you to this point. And I remember when I was talking to the building commission about this, it's like you reach a point where you're now over flooded with requests for new development because Brisbane's growing, and that's not a problem they've had before. So now they've got to think about, how do we actually change what we're doing and try and find creative ways to educate people that actually we have to be compliant, we have to do this, we have all these steps we have to go through, and we do that exploring. And in a lot of cases, people don't know what the answer is, and I think over time, in the next couple of years, that's going to get a lot worse because we're taking a lot of the process and we're turning it into this automated technology. The flip side of that is you still have to figure things out as a business owner. You still have to think, okay, my leads are down or whatever, and in that case, you've got to then come up with a way to explore that and gradually fix that or try something different before you hit that failure point and you're calling the bankruptcy lawyers. You know, it's those kinds of things.
You don't want to be there.
No, you don't want to be there. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But throughout this whole conversation so far, we've talked about the good aspects of AI.
Yep.
And before you came here, we had a little chat about your background, and we talked about AI. And you've mentioned some interesting things that we note down, and I wanted you to discuss about them as well. You told us that with this change in development in technology, there's going to be a widening gap between the societies that do have that technology and that understand how it works and can leverage it, compared to under-resourced countries or nations, or even, I don't know, suburbs even, that don't have access to education and those resources. Can you explain a little bit more about that and why that's the case?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I think people forget that here, where we are in Australia, we are very lucky. We're a mineral-rich country. We've got access to this technology just on our phones. It's quite easy to get access to. But in a lot of cases, people don't have that kind of access. And we call that the digital divide. And I remember 10 years ago, we were talking about that being access to laptops and access to technology, but then it was mobile phones. But there's two big problems on the horizon there. The first one I see a lot of is education. People that don't have access to this technology, they have that problem. They're not going to be able to get access. But when they get access, how do we educate them to actually use it in a way that it provides benefit to their communities when it's so resource intensive? Like running ChatGPT, for example, it chews through so much water. It's quite harmful for the planet to run it the way they're running it, and they've got to figure out ways to sort of stop that from happening and reduce the impact it has on the environment and the world around us. The other side of that, I think, is the psychological aspect. If you imagine you're from a country that doesn't have access to this technology, or you can't get access to it, when other nations sort of have it and they can develop better solutions and they can do other things that you can't, it creates a broadening gap in that disadvantage. And a lot of the problems, I think, with this technology is it comes from a place like Silicon Valley, where they don't really have, in my opinion, the foresight to be able to say, this is where it's going and the impact it's going to have. And you look at recent developments and you start to think, okay, so now we've got a bunch of people that are really good at developing technology, telling us what to do with our daily lives. And while I appreciate that, and they probably know more than I do, I don't think that those technology giants really should interfere with the way we do things. And I think that's a problem as well, because you have this almost like a ruling class that are good at developing technology, that have those technology skills, and the rest of the people that aren't, they're going to miss out. And so there's this big issue at the moment about what about, do we create universal basic income? Do we, and it's funny, I was watching American Horror Story. I don't know whether you've seen that. It's probably not appropriate for Griffith, but there's this section where they've got this, they take this black pill.
Right.
And it turns them into this, if you've got talent, it turns you into this creative super god, right?
Right.
And if you don't, you become a vampire.
Right.
And it's like, and I think was a really good way of thinking about what's happening with tech at the moment.
Right.
If you get good at tech and you can sort of learn to work with it, then you'll become quite skilled.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what field you're in anymore. It's through everything. It's like a plague in a way. And on the flip side to that, if you can't get access to that, you'll just keep falling behind. And there'll be more people in what they call the underclass, I think. So this is an issue that the government really should think about. And I think people should start exploring in a little bit more depth.
What are the practical tips for students to make a note of when they're going to the workforce to account for those things that you just mentioned?
I think one thing you should do, it's going to sound a little bit complacent, but one thing you should do is become very good at understanding how technology works and how you can work with it. So if you go into accounting or you're going into marketing, you're going into these professions, learn those technologies in advance. So when you get there, you hit the ground running. Surprisingly, a lot of organizations still rely on spreadsheets. So we're miles away from that, taking over and working that way.
And with that divide of the countries that have AI and that don't, is there a potential for some wealth to be concentrated in those countries, and then for other countries to really be disadvantaged from that?
Yeah, absolutely there is. Because what it will do is because these companies are attached to the stock market and their value, there's always been a problem of valuating them.
Yeah.
So in a traditional business, you'll look at the assets, the liabilities, you'll look at what's happening, and you'll think, okay, it's either overvalued or undervalued. So Warren Buffett's way of investing is to look through all of that stuff and then come to a decision, okay, this business is undervalued, we're going to invest in it. And by the very act of him doing that, it goes up in value. And with tech companies, people were enamored with them. They have different metrics. So for years, I don't know if this is true anymore, but Uber wasn't making all that much money. It was running at a loss. But because they had a massive user base, they could leverage that user base. And that user base would make them money, and it makes them more valuable than they are. So a lot of these companies are perpetually running at a loss. But you're right, it sucks up the resources into the handful of a few people. And countries that don't have access to that kind of equity or that capital, they tend to not be able to compete. So, for example, I had a student from Brazil, and Brazil's a very big nation, very big nation, way bigger than Australia. And they had 8 unicorns. And you think, come out of like a startup that they started at a university, and you think it should be more than that, based on the size. And if you just compared, say, the size of Brazil and the size of, say, California, then you begin to see the problem that a lot of that talent is being sucked up this pipeline into Silicon Valley, and it's not necessarily being distributed.
The brain drain.
Brain drain, yeah.
So we got Victor here with us from Brazil.
Yeah, I'm from Brazil.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Exactly, we got the talent here. So I want to really take you to your personal journey and how did, when you first came out with AI stuff, and now it's just recently, DeepSeek kind of came out as well. So I was wondering what are your thoughts on that too?
Look, I think it's interesting, when it first came out, I thought it was a gimmick. I thought, this is rubbish. This is just asking a machine a bunch of stupid questions. But then I started to really use it quite a lot. We went through a bit of the higher education sector's been going through a bit of a crunch lately. And so I couldn't get money I needed to hire someone to do some research because the funds were tied up. And so I started to learn AI, and I started to put data into the ChatGPT interface. There's a bunch of us in our hallway that have started doing it, and it's the exact opposite of what I would have thought. It's not easy. It's really hard to use at times, and at times it just forgets things. And you have to constantly work with it. It's like working with a person. You have to be there to sort of say, okay, no, I want it this way or that way. But when I would say now that I can see the potential in it, only in the last 12 months. Prior to that, I don't think it was developed enough. But now I can see, for example, I was marking a thesis from New Zealand, looking at some research from New Zealand. And they sent it over and I looked at it, but then I thought I'll use Notebook LM to sort of summarize it for me. And it did this little podcast. Like it's weird.
Podcast.
Yeah. It sounds like real people speaking.
Right.
Yeah, it's nuts. And then I thought, oh, okay, I've missed a couple of things. I had to go back and then think through some of the comments I've made because I've got to present verbally to these people. And so it has changed my life. I wrote a report last year for the Griffith Asia Institute, and I had a resource constraint problem, so I had to use some of that data there and produce these charts. And if you saw that report, you would think, wow, it looks quite good, but all of those charts came out of AI.
Wow.
Like we had to, it was a mission. It was a lot of work. I sometimes wonder if it wasn't more work for me just paying someone to do it. But it does a lot. Like I got people looking at submissions from the food inquiry, and so you've got people I know rather are doing that. So there's just an amazing array of things you can do with it. And if you look at some of the prompt engineering stuff that's going on now, it's so much more advanced than it was 2 years ago, and is quite incredible.
Yeah, I've noticed the shift is coming really fast now. Maybe when you launched, it was groundbreaking, but at the same time, it was kind of slowly, like everybody's kind of getting their hands on the AI. They were skeptical, but then they kind of started using it, and then they're like, oh, this is actually pretty crazy. So now that it's gonna accelerate into that pathway. So I guess I want to actually explore also a little bit about why Griffith. I think we briefly talked about before this podcast about your journey at Griffith. So why did you choose Griffith and why do you like it?
That's a good question. There are times when things get tight, like last year. I think the difference here, like I've worked at a couple of different places. The difference here is that people really want to help, and the culture here is very supportive. The people are great, and so you have an environment where it's not difficult to come to work. I've got colleagues in other unnamed universities where it's so competitive. Right? You'll go into their hallway and there's stuff plastered all over the walls showing their achievements. Here it's more developmental, so you've got time to think about what you want to do. From a student's perspective, you get a lot of support as you're coming through. Because I've had kids one of my kids went through another university and they just don't get the same level of support. I was amazed, and it was quite a well-known university. And I had to ring constantly to help her figure out how to navigate the system. But here, they put a lot of effort into, especially the last 5 years, they put a lot of effort into making it a better experience. And there's always something on for students here as well. I find that that's different. Like when you go to a place like, say, UQ, for example, not picking on UQ, but you go there as a student, you're one of several thousand that competed for that space. And Griffith tends to be a little bit more flexible with that. You've got more choice. There's a lot of internship programs and stuff. So they've put a lot of thought into it. The other thing I think that I like about here is that you're left, I shouldn't say this, but I will. You're kind of left to your own devices. A lot of academics, this is just from a professional point of view, you're told you must publish in these narrow areas. Like I had a colleague come over from UQ and they would, no, you can't get promoted unless you publish in these journals or you do this kind of research. What I've found the main reason I think that keeps me here is that I'm allowed to explore the things I want to explore. You get a lot of freedom in the way you design things. And the students that come here, especially I found the undergraduate and postgraduate students are a different variety. They're not super competitive and they're not really wanting to be, the next Jeff Bezos or whatever, but they just want to, a lot of them want to improve their lives and make a difference. And that's, I think, the big thing that we do differently. And it's good to see it finally coming out in our branding. Walked past a bus stop the other day and it's the Make It Matter thing. I think they've actually got something there which they should stick with. Because I think that's really, if you have a look at the research that comes out of here, it's very much focused on that. There is a lot of that here. And that's what I like, because it's different and it's alternative. So you can sort of play around with things. And
support didn't have to be like keeping your hands, holding your hands the whole time. But Griffith does allow a lot of freedom, but at the same time, they allow resources available so that you can reach out for it anytime you want. And that's what I really liked about Griffith, and I agree with that.
Yeah, and the program directors here, the people here, a lot of them, you can go and talk to them. You can walk in and chat to them. You can make an appointment and discuss things. You just can't do that at other universities. It's almost impossible to get. Like my daughter was doing music for a while, and to get to her program director, you had to climb over 6 people. And you think, why? And people that I've worked with here, there was a guy who used to work here called Sandy, and he helped a lot of people get jobs at the end because of he knew people and he would help people that way. And I think that's the big difference I've noticed.
Yeah, and that's the lesson that we can tell the students right now is that there are professors out there, literally offices. Sometimes the doors are just wide open. You just walk around. So their doors are literally wide open for you to ask questions. If you have any concerns about your future career, like there are actually the real people who have actually thought about the similar things as you, and actually want to know about where you want to go, and because that also is I think that gives a bit of a satisfaction, doesn't it? As educators, it's good to see students climb up and actually grow.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've seen a lot of that, and I've got a number of students that have done master's programs with us that are now senior executives, and that you watch them build their career from the time they were here, and it's very satisfying to see that. You may not I mean, the other thing is you may not wind up working for a bank, but a lot of people do, or you may not end up in that commerce, unless you study commerce, of course. But you will along the way pick up a lot of useful skills, and I think the way they've designed the degrees here is to be more about that, and so you get a fair dose of theory, but you also get this understanding that I can apply this immediately and I can build something with this, and that's the way I think they're going, and I like that about here. It's very practical, but it's very student centered.
Yeah, I think so far we've had a really good, awesome discussions about digital transformation yourself, because what I wanted to really emphasize for the students is this podcast is meant to, I guess, help students to feel more in the community, that they feel that they belong to the people, and then also the academics who they're afraid, students are afraid, or they're not used to talking to professors, because the title seems quite big, and so that's why the main motivation behind this podcast is, I mean, for someone like me who actually saw you in the lecture recording, and I'm filming this podcast with you, is something that I don't think would have been possible if it was at a university. That's the way I'm guessing, So I'm really grateful for this opportunity, So is there anything that I know we've kind of previously talked about this? Is there anything that you want the students to look out for, if even for yourself? I know that you briefly mentioned your LinkedIn. So is there something that students can go follow?
Just LinkedIn at the moment, but and I've got a few things that you can probably, if you're interested in research, I'm happy to have a chat about that. You can just email me. But LinkedIn's probably where most of my stuff winds up these days. I've been a bit lazy with it. I've been on holidays. But I try to put
it's the start of the year.
Yeah, and I do have a YouTube channel, but it's pretty dead at the moment as well. I haven't put much effort into that. But I'm happy to chat to anyone. About if you're watching this and you've got a question, you can email me and I'll answer it.
Yeah, and I will probably add those details in the caption as well, so everybody can have a look. But yeah, overall, I think you have been a delight to chat to. I think some of the things that you've mentioned were gold, and I think I can clip all of that, and then and tell the students that this we have someone like you who is amazing at what you do, and researching for a great thing, that ask a big question, but in a small capacity, and then you are eventually going to go towards that path. So I think your perspective was awesome, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And I appreciate what you're doing at Griffith, and I hope you stay here for as long as you can, so students can be motivated just like I have been.
Oh, that's great. I'm really happy to hear that. Thank you.
No
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks for being here.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.